Hello all, and thank you for attending our clinic today. I'm Madeline from Lingso Garden Materials, and today we have Leslie Muennemann from our UC Master Gardeners joining us with Introduction to Composting. Thank you again for joining us, and the floor is all yours, Leslie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for showing up. This is one of my favorite subjects. I'm a UC Master Gardener through the San Mateo County. And as you can see here, my name is highlighted. And what that means is that my email is embedded in there. And if you click on it, you can email me and ask me questions. This presentation, I'm giving this as a PowerPoint on my desktop at home. And I've copied it into a PDF, which is then going to be emailed to you after my presentation. I feel more comfortable giving you all my my talk. There's a lot to say, and then at the very end, you can we'll open it up for questions. You can put your questions in the chat, and Madeline will field those at the end. So I was first a master composter before I became a master gardener, because in my county, and master gardener programs are by county, there wasn't a master gardener program yet. So through the San Mateo County, they were encouraging people to become they were teaching us how to do composting at home, and then encouraging us to go out and teach people, just like we do as master gardeners. So that's where I got my start. I think that was a long time ago. And I've been doing it ever since in my home. My kids, we all as a family, we continue to compost. And the title is very appropriate. Compost happens, because compost is basically decomposition. And decomposition, everything that's alive dies and then deteriorates, decomposes, and becomes organic matter, decomposed organic matter. That is Mother's Nature way of making sure that we're not all buried in a pile of stuff. And it's all around us. It's happening continuously. And once we learn about this process and we walk through the forest or just take a walk in the neighborhood, you can see it everywhere. I mean, you see it in your refrigerator. And I just pulled out a bag of lettuce that was slowly turning to slush. That was the decomposition process happening right there in my kitchen. And you see this in your fruit as it starts to rot. It gets a brown spot, and then it gets mold on it. That is decomposition, and it's happening all around us all the time. And what you're going to learn here today is to take the steps that Mother Nature takes very slowly and to speed it up so that you can produce compost at home. Now, the UC Master Gardeners is through the University of California. And basically, they've taken the research that's done in the ag department, and we master gardeners interpret that for home gardeners. That we go through a training. In fact, our county will be having a training soon, and they're starting to take applications. So if any of you are interested in becoming a master gardener, if you live in San Mateo or San Francisco counties, all you do is contact us, apply, and take it from there. But what we do as master gardeners, our commitment is to educate the public. So doing exactly what I'm doing right now. We do this for free. This is your tax dollars at work. And we offer other services, primarily a garden helpline. And there's a phone number and our email, so you can contact us when you call and we're not there. If a volunteer isn't sitting there waiting for your call at the phone, a message comes on, you can leave a message and we will get back to you, or you can email us. So we have three offices where you can come in person, and I put the address or the location. The addresses are at the very end of the presentation, but these are the days and the times and the locations. And the remote means that you can call them or email them, and somebody is on duty during those hours. And you can bring in, if it's in person, you can bring in a sample of your plant or a bug, and we will, if we don't have the answer right away, we know where to look, or we know whom to ask. So we will try to get to the bottom of it and help you solve your problem. All right, so we do other things other than answer the phone and answer your questions in person. We also teach people in the schools to set up a school garden. We do not plant the garden for them. We teach them how to do that. And that's why we call it train the trainer. And we do this several times throughout the year. So staff, school staff, teachers, and parents can take this class, and then they can go and they can set up a school garden. We also have demonstration gardens and research gardens. So what they are, the demonstration garden is basically where we show you how to grow things. And the research garden is where we do trials, like of vegetables, for instance. So we'll take a variety of tomatoes and we'll try them all in different areas of the planter bed or the garden, and keep records and figure out, you know, which one does what. So those are the research gardens. And we also have a presence every year. We have a booth or two and a demonstration garden at the San Mateo County Fair. And we have an education center, which we call the Garden GEC, Garden Education Center. And it's basically the San Mateo County has given us a little patch of land at what used to be the county fairgrounds. So it's the same place as San Mateo County Fair. And we've cleaned that up and planted, we have planter beds, and we give classes there. We have a bioreactor, which is another way of composting. So there are a lot of activities on that little patch of land, and it's surrounded with fencing so that that's our space and we can teach. We also do what I'm doing right now, community classes. Now we do this in person. We go to community centers and to different locations around San Mateo County and San Francisco County, and we teach classes, and or we do Zoom, as I'm doing right now. All right. So San Mateo County, well, the state of California actually passed a new law in 2022, which requires all of us to pay attention to what we put in our green bin. Now, the county, the state of California is trying to get people to put less garbage in the garbage can, in the black bin. In our San Mateo County, at least my area, I have a black bin for garbage, a blue bin for recyclables like plastics, and a green bin for compostables. So that would be my yard waste. And now the county and the state of California want us to collect whatever kitchen scraps we do not put into our personal compost pile. That should go into the green bin. They don't want the plastic bag. They've been sending out spots telling us no plastic in the green bin. They only want us to put organic waste in there. And that organic waste is either kitchen scraps, yard waste, bones, you know, drippings, that kind of thing, too much of anything that's organic that would compost. So you put that into your green bin. And the state allows them to penalize you with a fine, but they're not doing that yet, as far as I know. But this is something that we all need to be aware of. And as far as collecting your kitchen scraps and your yard waste, you know, this is, whether you compost or not, this is something that we all do as families. You know, we have our garbage collection in our house is just a routine. We know that Wednesday night, The garbage gets picked up on Thursday, so we all know that Wednesday night we empty all the trash cans and take those bins out and put them up next to the side of the road so that they can get picked up on Thursday. And it's just a routine that you all develop slowly. Now, compost is not fertilizer. Fertilizer is, I think, a legal term. It requires whoever is selling that product to do the analysis, figure out how much nitrogen, how much potassium, and how much phosphorus, the NPK that you see on a package, that is required by law to be, if it's a fertilizer, it has to have the NPK. And those are nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. I don't know if it's that order, but they are a percentage. And the numbers tell you the percentage of those elements in that fertilizer. Now, you won't ever see that on a package of compost, commercial compost, because compost is not fertilizer, it's an amendment. An amendment means that it improves your soil. And the soil is made up of different particles, and we're going to get into that in a minute. And most of us have very clayey soil, which is very sticky when it's wet, and it doesn't drain well, and it's hard to work through when it's dry. So the organic material basically loosens up that soil. It adds more mass to those particles, and it just opens it up and provides more air space and allows the water and the oxygen to move through the soil more easily. So it improves your soil. It's what nature does naturally, and we're just going to speed it up. We're going to learn the steps that nature takes to make, to decompose, which is to create compost. And we're going to learn the different ingredients that you need and the different procedures. It's not complicated. It may take a little practice, but we all get better at it the more we do it. Now, what the compost will do, as I said, it will open up your clay soil. Clay particles are very tiny and they stick together a lot. And so the little particles of decomposed organic material just kind of opens it up, brings in more air, and allows the water to penetrate down through the soil. Now, there's compost everywhere. As you look around, you realize anything that's alive is going to die and is going to decompose eventually and turn into organic, decomposed organic material. And leaves are a big item that most of us see around us. And leaf mold is basically just decomposed leaves. And in my neighborhood, we have a lot of oak trees, and the leaves, and we're counties, so we don't have any kind of sidewalks or street sweeping or anything like that. So the leaves just fall day in and day out for decades and pile up, and they decompose. And if you push aside the newer leaves on the top and you dig down, it's going to look like soil, but it's not soil. It's just decomposed organic matter. And that's what leaf mold is. And you can do this. This link here will take you to a page or a video that shows you exactly how you can make your own leaf mold. Basically, you just compost them. And because we have so many oak leaves around us, we collect them. And every time we add kitchen scraps to our compost bin, we put a layer of leaves, dry leaves, which are the carbon. We put that on top because that helps keep rats and other things that might get into our compost. All right, the benefits of compost. So, kitchen scraps, you want to keep your kitchen scraps and your yard waste, any disease-free yard waste. And that means, for yard waste, that means if your fruit tree has a disease on it, don't put that into your compost. Put that into your green bin. you want, and all that yard waste and all that trash that gets collected is taken, the black bin, that is your garbage. And that's taken to a landfill. And landfill is real estate. Real estate is expensive in our area. And so the state of California is trying to get us all to keep any of the things we would throw away, to either find a reuse for them, to keep them on site, to either reuse them, turn them into compost, or if it's yard waste or kitchen scraps, put it into our green bin. And the county takes that to a location, I think it's San Jose, and they compost it, and then they turn around and they give us the compost for free. But keeping stuff on site will save us money in the long run, because putting anything into a landfill, the point I'm trying to make is that it's expensive to throw trash out. As any of you have taken anything to the dump probably already know. So the other benefit is that compost will improve your drainage, and it will also help retain water. And this sounds contradictory, but it's not, because imagine a sponge. So if you take a dry sponge and you get it saturated with water, and then you gently squeeze the water out, that sponge is still moist. And that's exactly what the compost does. So it allows the water into your clay soil, but you've got the organic material mixed in with there. So that opens up all those little clay particles that stick together. It opens it up so that the water can infiltrate and drain down to the water table. But it also holds on to some moisture so that your soil is not bone dry. So that's what the compost does. It helps with drainage, but it retains sufficient amount of water in there to keep your soil a little bit moist. So it gives your plants a little hedge of moisture. It improves soil structure. So the soil is a whole science unto itself. And there are two terms that I used to get confused. There's soil structure and soil texture. Now, think of texture like my hair, the texture of my hair. The texture of your soil is permanent. It's whatever was put on this earth. That you cannot change. I cannot change the texture of my hair. I can change the structure by adding things like mousse. I can change the shape of my hair. With soil, you can change the structure by adding amendments like decomposed organic material that will open up all those little particles. Whether you have sandy soil or clayey soil, the organic material is going to improve the structure of your garden soil, and it's going to it's going to improve the permeability. So the water will be able to drain through and the air will be able to move through, so that those roots can move through that soil and take advantage of all the goodies in there. If it were clay soil with no organic material, those little particles stick together and the roots have trouble moving through, and your plants don't do as well. I mentioned that the county takes your green bin and composts it. And then they turn around and they give it to you for free if you want it. They have days, I guess, when they give compost away. And my only warning is that remember that people are putting in their yard waste and their kitchen scraps, and so it's totally dependent on whatever people put in there. Now, hopefully the county is heating up this compost hot enough that it will kill pathogens, so that you're not bringing this free compost into your garden that may infect your soil. So that's the only caveat with it, that it may or may not be free of pathogens. If you produce your own compost and you're very careful about what you put into your bin, you can control, and that's the main thing. Don't put anything diseased into your compost pile. And that way you won't be spreading disease around your garden. Now, as I mentioned, the soil is a soil science. It's a whole field that people major in. And I took a class at Foothill at their horticulture department, which is excellent. And it was fascinating. And there's a very easy way that gardeners can learn about their own garden soil. And that's to take a mason jar, a glass jar, any kind of glass jar, and then you could go and dig in one place or in several places around your garden and mix that together, put it in the jar, just maybe a fourth of the jar of soil, and then fill it up with water, put the lid on it, give it a good shake, and then let it rest and settle for about 24 hours. And what happens is that the particles, the sand, the silt, and the clay, and the organic material, all of those separate. And because they're different sizes, different weights, and you're going to have the heaviest, which is the sand at the bottom, and then you're going to have the silt on top and the clay on top. And then you'll have the water, and then you'll have the organic material, which is the lightest, that floats on a layer on the very top of your water. And you can measure those and do the math and figure out the percentage of which particle is the greatest. Most of us around here have very clayey soil, and that's usually going to be the biggest percentage. This apparently is the ideal soil to have. Your organic material is a very small percentage, but it has a huge impact on the quality of your soil. This slide is put together by in the San Mateo, San Francisco Master Gardeners. We have soil specialists, and Terry Linkso of Linkso Garden Materials is one of these soil specialists. She's given a lot of presentations. She knows a lot about soil, and this slide is to help you learn more about your soil, because not only do you want to know how to make compost, you want to know how you're using the compost, what it's doing in your garden. Presumably you're gardening, that's why you're doing compost. And this is all information that helps all of us be better gardeners. So I mentioned that the soil is a mixture of particles of different sizes. And there's the sand, which is very big. And then there's the silt, which is a mixture of clay and sand. And then there's the clay, which is what most of us have. And an easy way to figure out if you have clay soil is to do what they're doing here on the left. He has made you take a bunch of soil and you get it wet and you make a little ball out of it, and then you squeeze it through your fingers. And if it sticks together and you can kind of mold it, then that tells you that it's very high in clay. My kids used to call it Indian clay. It's just clay. And clay, as we know, you can mold clay. So if you can mold it, then it's probably a good indication that you've got a lot of clay in your soil. Another way to test your soil is to dig a hole, fill it up with water, let it drain, then fill it up again, and watch how it drains. If it drains quickly, then you've got good drainage. You probably have a lot of organic material in there already, or you have sand. And sand would be obvious because of the particle size. The other way to tell is if your garden soil, you go out there and you try to work it and it's hard as a rock and you have to bring out the pickaxe to break it, that's probably an indication that you have clay soil. And it's going to require a lot of compost over many years to improve that soil. All right, so let's talk about making compost. So you need some certain tools to make compost. And probably the most important is you need a space to put the compost pile, because the people that have figured out how to take what Mother Nature does naturally, they figured out that you need a certain mass of greens and browns, which are the ingredients that go into the compost pile. And they figured out that you need 3 cubic feet. That's the minimum size of mass. And the compost bins are all mostly they're shaped like that. There's some cylinders, and that's a different story. But what I'm familiar with is the cubic foot. It's 3 cubic feet. So you would need a space that's at least 3 by 3 feet. And where to locate it, you preferably want your compost bin to be on soil, because the soil microbes are going to move into your compost, and it's going to benefit that little spot wherever you put your compost pile. But you can put a compost pile on other than soil. If you put it like on concrete, it's probably going to stain it. So you want to put plastic underneath your bin so that the compost doesn't come in contact with it. The bin will still compost. It's just a different way to do it. Okay. So you need a place. Now, if you don't do it in a bin, if you want to do it in a pile, I've done the heap of material. Again, you need a certain mass for that to heat up. It's, a breakdown process. And if you have a small pile, it will decompose, but it's not going to decompose as quickly as it could. The bigger pile you have, the more mass, the more it's going to heat up, and the faster it's going to break down. Okay, so of course you need a bucket for your kitchen scraps. We have one on our counter, and we have a bigger one underneath our sink. And we've been doing this for over 30 years. And it's just every time we, prepare things, vegetables, whatever, we put it into this bucket. Now, if it's leftovers, food that's been prepared, we don't usually put that in the compost. And it's recommended that you not, like if you have salad with salad dressing on it, put that into your kitchen scrap bag and put that into the green bin later on. Don't put it into your compost. So you want, your peelings, you want stuff that's rotting in your refrigerator that you can put in. That's not considered pathogenic. That's considered, it's already rotting, decomposing, turning into compost in your refrigerator. All that can go into your bucket, and you can put that in your compost bin. All right. You also need a container. So like I said, there's a link here that will take you to a page that shows you there are many different kinds of containers. And San Mateo County used to give a discount to, they had, long ago when I was doing it, it was the Smith and Hawkins BioStack. And I have found, that's what I have now, and I have found that to be the best composting bin out there. And you can find those on Craigslist, and I would pay as much as $100 to get one of those if it's in good condition, if all the parts are there, to get it used from somebody, because it is such good quality and they don't make them anymore. So, and I've had mine for over 20 years, and they're still in good shape. They show very little wear unless they've been chewed on by animals. You can do it with wood. In fact, I think I put a link in here somewhere in this presentation where the county will give you, they will rebate you for building your own. And they have plans, there are several plans for building your own composting bin. And again, it's going to be 3 feet by 3 feet. So it's 3 cubic feet of material that goes into there. I've done the cylinder too. It's a big headache. You can do it, but there are many different ways. The point is that you just want to bring the browns and the greens, the water and the air, which are the ingredients that you need to make compost. You bring all those together in a place, and Mother Nature does the rest. Those microbes start breaking down all that material. It heats up, and you turn it. You keep it wet. That's going to make the compost. All right, so here I mentioned that the county will offer you a rebate. I believe the only way you can get a bin now is through you have to take a workshop through San Mateo County. And I think I put a link in there. You have to be a resident. Now, if you aren't in San Mateo County, go to your either your garbage person, that website, or go to your county and find out what they offer. Different counties offer different things. So I mentioned that our kitchen scraps go into a bucket, and this is what it looks like. It's just underneath our sink. It doesn't have a lid. It doesn't smell unless we don't empty it regularly, because everything that gets put in there starts to decompose. That mass, all those microbes that are in there, they start breaking down all the material that's in there. Decomposition happens, whether we want it to or not. So it's right there underneath my sink. And we do this and we take it and empty it out in the side yard where we have our compost bins. All right, so there are some tools that are very helpful to have. Not a shovel, but a pitchfork. And when we did our graduation, everyone got a pitchfork. So they're wonderful tools. They do the job. You poke it into the material that's in your compost bin or into your heap, and just flip it over. Flip it into another bin if you're turning it, or flip it into a next door to turn it. Or if you're going to sift it, we just scoop it out with a pitchfork, scoop it a big. It'll all it doesn't stick together, but you can get a good forkful and dump it into your screen when you're sifting it. A long stem thermometer is very, very helpful and not expensive. And you put it in the very center of your bin. That is where all the mass is pushing against itself, and that's going to be the hottest point in your compost pile. If you've ever taken wood chips and seen a pile of wood chips, that mass of organic material, which has green and brown mixed into it because they're wood chips, you've probably noticed that with time, if it's wintertime, you can see the steam comes off of it. And if you stick your hand in the middle of that pile, you can feel the heat. That is decomposition happening. If you've ever taken not yard waste, but like grass clippings, put grass clippings in a garbage bag and forget about it, and then go back and you'll see, first of all, it'll smell bad, and you'll see that the grass has all stuck together and started to turn gooey. That is because decomposition is happening. It's happening whether you want it to or not. It's, you put those things in a bag, and they're all rubbing against each other, and everything has microbes on it. And as soon as those microbes get into that, or they start acting on that organic material and breaking it down, and that's what you're seeing. All right, a screen is a very, very helpful thing to have. You can use a kitchen colander. I had a screen that was in my cat litter, and I've used that to screen compost. Anything that will take out the big chunks, because even though you have been turning that, there are always going to be bigger particles in your compost, bigger and smaller. And what you want when you sift it, when it's finished, you want it to be as fine as possible. You don't want the twigs, you don't want the big leaves, you don't want the avocado pit that hasn't decomposed yet. All that's going to get put back into the compost to continue decomposing. It's just going to take longer. So the screen helps you sift out all the big particles. We have one that looks very much like this one. It fits over our wheelbarrow, and this is hard work. My son does it now, but taking that forkful of finished compost out of the compost bin and flipping it into the screen and giving it a good shake, all this adds up to a good workout. Now you can also use you can store your finished compost in a garbage can, a clean garbage can, something with a lid, and you could also put it, and that's usually what we do, I think, or you can just put it in a bucket and take it and throw it into add it to your garden. You can mix it in with the soil, you can spread it on top. The other item you need is a wheelbarrow or some sort of container that you put the screen on that the screened compost fits in. Okay, so these are the tools that I recommend. And as far as ingredients is concerned, this is can be challenging for some of us. I used to go to the grocery stores and ask the produce department to save their greens for me because I didn't have enough greens. I always had plenty of browns. The browns are dry leaves, anything that's made from trees, cardboard, paper, sawdust, wood chips. Newspaper is fine because today they use soy ink, so it's totally decomposable. It's not toxic. And straw, I put an asterisk because hay or straw, and I get them mixed up. One of them has seeds, and you don't want to put any weed seeds or anything that has seeds into your compost, because most home composters do not get their compost hot enough to kill seeds or to kill pathogens. So if spreading weeds around your garden is important to you, you don't want to do that, then be mindful that you don't put seeds, anything with seeds, into your garden, into your compost bin. All right. Greens, I mentioned that I used to go to the produce department because I didn't have enough greens. But so it's kitchen scraps, grass clippings. I asked my neighbor for his grass clippings, any kind of yard waste, any pruning, any weeds that you pull, make sure they don't have weed seeds if you don't want to spread weeds. And manure, as long as it's from an animal that only eats plants, that is not a carnivore. So you do not want manure from dogs, cats, humans, anything that's a carnivore, leave that out. A pet like guinea pigs, rabbits, chickens, cow manure is fine. Horse manure, I think that's why I put the asterisk. Horse manure is iffy because they feed or they give horses, they deworm horses. So they are killing the worms in their body, and that may go into the manure. So ask when you accept grass clippings from somebody, ask if they put any kind of herbicide or pesticide on their grass. And then for the manure, if you're getting it from a source that ask them if they use any kind of if they're giving their horses or animals any kind of medication. So, and then alfalfa meal is a fabulous nitrogen source. It's almost pure nitrogen. Blood meal would be another one. just very, it's considered green. And I think in that link there at the top where it says ingredients, I think I have a list of all the different, there are many different things that organic, that decompose, that you can put into your compost. The other two ingredients that you must have to create compost is you need to have water. So make sure that you have a source of water. We have a hose, that you have water nearby, because you're going to need to keep your the ingredients slightly damp, moist. So they're going to be, you would take a handful of the wetted material in your compost bin and squeeze it, and maybe a drop of water comes out. So, you know, if you have dry leaves in there, that's going to take a considerable amount of water to get that moist. So have a source of water nearby. And then air is basically, you don't want to compact the material that's in your bin. You don't want to push it down. You want to fill it up. And if there's sticks in there, bigger pieces, that's fine, because all of that's going to keep it open so that air moves through and allows those microbes need oxygen to reproduce and to break down all that organic material. And so your compost will, if it has the right ratio of greens and browns and water, it will heat up to 140 degrees. That's the limit where we say if it gets to that, and that's why you need a thermometer, or you need to, you know, stick your hand into the middle of the bin of the compost pile to see how hot it is. If it's gotten hot, that's usually an indication that you need to turn it. Those microbes need to be refreshed. Otherwise, they're going to burn themselves out and die. So you need to constantly, as it heats up, you bring that pitchfork in, and you lift up some from the middle to the outside edges. So you're always moving things from the center to the outside edges, and sprinkling it with water to keep it moist and keep the air circulating. All right, so here's another list of things that you can put into your compost bin. So we've been taking tissue, just, you know, tissue and not toilet paper, but just when I blow my nose, I put the Kleenex in the compost. Now, there's controversy. Some people think that anything that's been bleached, and that's probably bleached wood, has some probably chemicals in it that aren't good. It breaks down beautifully. So I do not put any kind of office paper, like the stuff that I print things out on in the computer. I would not put that in. And then those things that supposedly are compostable, I don't put those in either, because they take forever. They must have some sort of plastic in them, because they take a very, very long time to break down, if they break down at all. And so be mindful of that, put them in there. I mean, things are gonna fall into your compost. We forget to take that little sticky label off the fruit, and they get in there, and they're all throughout our compost, and I'm constantly fishing them out when we sift the compost. I swear that if they did an anthropological dig in my backyard, they could figure out everything we've eaten because of those little sticky tags. But string gets in there. Some of it, if it's organic, you know, if it's cotton or wool, it eventually will break down. But we learn these things as we go. All right. Obviously, there are things that you should not put into your compost. And anything that's meat eating is high on the list. And the reason is because meat eaters, their feces can have pathogens. And because we as home gardeners do not heat our compost high enough to kill pathogens, those pathogens are going to be spread throughout our garden, a disease. So avoid anything that's, you can use manure from a non-meat eating animal. That's their bedding, and their feces are fine. You don't want weeds with seeds, because those seeds will all germinate in your garden. Anything that's diseased in your yard waste, put that in the green bin. The meat, the dairy, the bones, the oily food, that you can put into your green bin. Don't put it, if you collect it in a plastic bag, dump it into the green bin. Do not put it, the plastic bag. They're telling us, don't put plastic into the green bin. Treated wood. So any wood that's used for building fences, make sure that it's not treated, because it has a chemical in it, and that can leach. If you know, as it breaks down, it will it will it will leach into the compost. And charcoal briquettes are not a good idea, and too much of anything. So, you know, we had a lot of fruit in our yard, and we were putting it into the compost, and what happens, it just starts to smell bad, and too much of anything is not good. All right, this is an excellent video on how to build a compost pile. So I'm not going to play it here for you. You can watch this at home. And this guy, Grow Veg, he's a YouTuber, and he has a lot of videos on gardening, which he's one of my favorites. Okay. So, building a compost pile. Think of it like building a salad. You're putting in the greens, the browns, the water, and you're tossing it all together. The water is kind of like the salad dressing. You're just tossing it and getting it mixed in there. And then you just leave it until it gets hot. And then you start turning it from the center to the outside. And if it's dried out, which it will do if it's in a sunny place or it's been a long time, check it. You want there to be enough moisture so that if you take a clump in your hand and you squeeze it, a drop of water, you can get about a drop of water out of it. So it should have some moisture in it. This is for those of you who are, you know, number nerds. I'm not. This is a calculator. You can type in what kind of browns or greens you're adding to your compost, and it'll tell you exactly how much you need and how much nitrogen or how much carbon, because that's what you're doing. The browns are the carbon and the greens are the nitrogen. And those come together with the air and the water, and the microbes break them down and turn them into organic waste. All right, particle size matters. So the smaller the particle, the faster those microbes are going to convert that into organic material. Wood chips will take a long time to break down. They will break down, but they will take a long time. So some people have you know, shredders. Those are great. Paper, you can run the paper through like newspaper or anything through a paper shredder, or just tear it up. But actually, paper is pretty fast, so I wouldn't waste my time doing that. Even cardboard gets decomposed very, very rapidly. As soon as the water hits it and those microbes, boom, it's gone. So pay attention to the particle size. If you want compost in a hurry, I have even experimented and it works. It's disgusting, but I've taken some of the material, like kitchen scraps, put it into a blender or a food processor, turned it into a puree, and mixed that in with my browns in the compost pile. And of course, that's going to break down very, very fast. So pay attention to this. This just gives you a timeline of how long it's going to take, depending on how big the particle sizes. And then the other part to pay attention to is that every time that you turn the pile, you're cooling it off. So let's say that you've built your pile, you've got your 3 by 3 cubic feet, you've got the minimum mass, and you've got the right ratio of greens to browns, and all of the microbes. Our compost teacher said it's like, imagine in a gym, and everybody, all these bodies are packed in there, and all these bodies are sweating, and you feel this heat. That's exactly what it's like. All those microbes are reproducing, and they're active, and all that just massive activity and breaking down and dying and being born and pooping, all that is creating heat. And that's what that heat is in the middle of your compost pile. So every time you disturb that by coming in with your pitchfork or your hand or whatever tool you use to bring what's in the center, which is the hottest point, bringing that out, turning it and flipping it around to open up the compost pile and turn the compost and sprinkle it with water. Every time you do that, the temperature will go down. And this chart shows you that. So it starts out high and then it dips, and then as it gets going again, the temperature goes up, and then you turn it and then it'll dip again. And this is the way it is. And if you have a thermometer and you keep a log, you're going to see this exactly. This is my teacher. She used to live in San Mateo. She was hired by the San Mateo County to teach a class, and she had a business at home in her backyard where she was creating compost. And this is the winter time, obviously, and she's turning a very hot pile of compost, and you can see all the steam, the heat that's coming out of this compost. And she was brewing compost tea. So that was her business. Compost tea is basically, they take the compost and then they put it into a container and they agitate it with water and they feed it so that all the microbes increase. And so it's a very microbial product that people in the gardening community and horticulturists like to use. Some use it as a remedy for diseases on plants, or just to boost the ingredient. It's just like concentrated compost is what it is, but it's very microbial. So it's a whole field into itself. I won't go into it here. You can look up compost tea. It's a fun project if you want to get into it. She was doing this very scientifically. She was sending samples of her tea to a lab to make sure that it had a certain amount of microbes in it. All right, so again, back to the soil science. As I mentioned to you, soil science is a whole field. There is so much to learn, and it is absolutely so fascinating. And I encourage any of you who garden to take a class. Well, one of the first things that you learn is that the soil is alive. It is full of life. And this soil food web, and I believe when you get your PDF in the email, you can click on this image and it has a link embedded in it that will take you to a website that explains what the soil food web is. And basically it's explaining how things decompose. And they start out with very tiny things like microbes. And then as they break down, and eventually, depending on the temperature in your compost and then the level that it's at that decomposition process, are the different creatures that come in to break down the material. So for instance, you have the organic, you have the fungi and the nematodes and the bacteria. And that's what I said to you when you put your compost together the first time, it heats up. And these three items are busy in there breaking down the cells of the outsides of the organic material that you put into your bin, and breaking it down. And eventually you get bigger bugs. You will see as your compost matures that different animals, like we have seen centipedes in there, and those pill bugs, and just everything you can imagine can get in there, and they're all part of the process. Now, another thing that you're going to see as your compost pile matures, this doesn't happen right away. It happens usually as all the ingredients in your compost bin heat up. You go in there to turn it, and you notice what looks like ash, like somebody took ashes and dumped them into your compost. And if you don't know what it is, it's very disconcerting, but I want to reassure you that that is the natural process. That's a good sign. And I put a link in here that will take you to a website that explains these are bacteria that are breaking down. It's at a certain phase. It doesn't happen right away. It happens at a certain temperature, and it just covers what, you know, you can have this happen in your soil too. If your soil has organic material that hasn't decomposed, and decomposition is happening in your garden soil, you can see this happening there too. It would happen in a little pocket. But anyway, in compost piles, this is what it looks like. And it has an aroma. It smells like, you know, a forest. It smells very pleasantly, and it's a good process. All right. So, and that tells you when your compost is finished. Finished compost is cool to the touch. It no longer has a temperature to it. It is cool. And it smells sweet, like a forest. It smells like, you know, good soil, healthy soil. And when you can no longer get the compost in your compost bin to heat up, and you see particles in there that are fine, you can go ahead and start sifting that. You can, like I said before, one of these big screen sifters are very, very helpful because it's a big job. And you can put it into any kind of container. We just put the sifter over our wheelbarrow and use that fork, just scoop it up, toss it in, give it a shake. Any big pieces that do not sift through the screen, we put back into the compost. Usually we have a second compost bin that we put the uncomposted or yet to be composted items back in there and start a new pile. So it's very easy to tell when your compost is finished. In my experience, there's always particles that are left behind. For instance, I mentioned avocado pits. They take forever to break down. So those go back into the compost bin or into a second one to start a new pile. Okay, troubleshooting. So the most frequent problem that people have is that their compost starts to smell. And that is usually, so composting is an aerobic process. And what that means is that the microbes that are breaking down the greens and the browns need oxygen. And that's one of the ingredients that we told you. You need water, oxygen, browns, and greens to make compost. If you do not supply the oxygen, if there's not enough spaces in your bin, if it's too compact, like the example I gave you of the grass clippings, and put the grass clippings in a garbage bag and let it sit there, that's anaerobic. A garbage can, all the garbage in the garbage can, that's anaerobic. There's not enough space in there and oxygen for the microbes to compost it without all that smell. So that garbagey smell is an indication that you need to put more space. Your pile is too compact. You need bigger particles in there, or you need to turn it more often. Okay, and sometimes it means that it's too wet. If there's too much moisture in there, there's not enough room for oxygen. So you need to either add more browns in there and or bigger particles. Just redo your compost bin and add some air to it. I would just, the fastest thing to do is just turn it and then come back and turn it again, help it dry out, add some leaves to it, add some cardboard to it. Now, another problem that people have frequently is that they put all the different parts together and it doesn't heat up to 140 degrees. And what that means is that you need more greens. Greens are what make the compost heat up. And the fastest way to do that is to add grass clippings. I've added alfalfa meal, which is and I don't know if it's a fertilizer, but it's almost pure nitrogen. And so I've added that to it and then moistened it, sprayed it with some water, churned it, mixed it up. And within 24 hours, that has heated up considerably. So if you want to heat up your compost pile, you need to add more greens and also make sure that all the other components are there, that you have enough, that it's moist enough and that it's got air, that there's enough solids in there or bigger pieces in there that are going to allow it to breathe. If it, let's see, if it goes over 140, that means that you have too much nitrogen and you don't have enough browns. So it's just the opposite there. You need to add more cardboard, more leaves, wet it down. That will cool it off. Turning it will cool it off. And you will see the temperature decrease very rapidly. The only problem with getting too hot is that, you know, it kills the microbial and the fungal activity in there. It'll kill it off. If it really gets too hot, and this has happened in commercial composting places where they've had spontaneous fires, it actually caught fire. So, but that won't happen to a home gardener. Yours would just, if it gets too hot, you just need to turn it and add some more browns and give it a little water. Now, if it's dry or compacted, that means that you need to add more water and you need to add bigger particles. You could just add pieces of cardboard or leaves to open it up a little bit. It's just a little too compacted in there, and turning it will also help it air it out. That will start the decomposition process. All right, so I put together a list and I checked all these links before this presentation to make sure these are all up to date and working. These are places where I went to learn about composting or sites that are very useful. And so this is for your pleasure. You can click on these and learn more. And Teaming with Microbes is a book written by an Alaskan gardener. It's a fabulous book. It's just, there's so much to learn about soil and composting. And let's see, here are the references again, more. And one of the things that you can do with your compost, besides putting it into your soil to help open up your soil if you have clayey soil, is to use it as top dressing, which is what this gardener is doing here. He's just taking the compost and he's putting it around. He's using it kind of like a mulch. He's putting around his plants to improve the soil, but also to mulch helps It's like a little blanket that you put over the soil. And what it does is it retains moisture in the soil and it cools the roots, protects it, keeps it warm in the winter and cool in the summer. So either use the compost as mulch or mix it into your soil. You can use it as potting soil. Just remember that it isn't soil. It doesn't have clay. And you need to have clay in your soil. You need clay, sand, and silt in your in any kind of anything that you grow something in. And again, thank you, Lingso, very much for hosting this. And again, my name is my email is embedded in there. And if any of your questions weren't answered, please, by all means, contact me, contact the San Mateo, San Francisco Master Gardeners, contact Lingso, which are also associated with Master Gardeners, and we will be happy to answer your question.
All right. Thank you very much, Leslie.